Marie Eva Elwine Goslich, the 24th of February 1859. Frankfurt. Oder, 1936. Was a German journalist, photographer and magazine editor. She is listed in the Berlin Residence Directory as writer and editor from 1902 to 1908 in Berlin. W57. Kurfürstenstraße 18. In 1909 she lived in Bülowstraße 59 and in 1910 in Berlin W62 in Massenstraße 35. During the years 1907 to 1910, she was editor of the journal Körperkultur, Body Culture, in Potsdam. She became a member of the editorial board for the journal Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt, Messenger for Christian Women, published in the Foundation Publishing House by Pastor Theodor Hoppe, 1846 to 1934. The founder of the Oberlinhauses. She also published in Die Mark, the Mark, an illustrated journal for tourism and local history. From 1916 to 1920, she was the responsible script manager for the Bote für die deutsche Frauenwelt, Messenger for German Women, as the Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt has been named since 1913. Life. Marie Goslich was the daughter of Friedrich Julius Goslich, the 18th of October 1807. Berlin, the 6th of May 1875. Frankfurt. Oder. Court of Appeal Counselor at the Court of Appeal in Frankfurt. Oder. Up to 1875. Her mother was Marie Rosalie Elwine Hess. The 6th of June 1821. Spandau. Berlin, the 7th of August 1865. Frankfurt. Oder. Marie Goslich was the youngest of 4 children. Her sister Elsbeth Valeska Goslich, the 24th of February 1855 to 4 August 1923, was a teacher in Berlin, living in Karlshorst, Donhofstrasse 1 in 1901, and Schöneberg, Akatienstrasse 5 in 1907. Marie was educated in the awareness of social responsibility at a very early age. In a letter to the editor of Bodenreform, Landreform, publisher Adolf Damask from 1914, she recalls one incident from the 1870s. The day before, my father had heard about the invitation to the birthday party. "Where is the party?" he asked. "At P. vom Wilhelmsplatz. But that's out of the question. That man buys properties just to resell them. It is pure land dealing. My daughter shall not enter such a house." From 1865 to 1875, Marie Goslich attended the State Hochschule, second-level girls' school, in Frankfurt. Oder. After the early bereavement of her parents, she lived with her sister, Elsbeth Valeska, in the house of their guardian, the Royal Prussian Secret Justice Counselor, Rudolf Tirpitz, 1811 to 1905, the father of Alfred von Tirpitz and a student friend of Marie's father. In 1877 she went to live with friends of the family to the Hertwigswalde Manor in Schlesien, to learn housekeeping. At a boarding school in Dresden she was educated in languages, music and tailoring. In 1882 she spent a year in the French-speaking region of Switzerland to improve her knowledge of French. Marie Goslich worked as a governess and private French teacher in Berlin. She lived in the so-called Republik Lützow UFER, with Laura Delbruck, mother of the publisher of the Prussian Almanac, the historian Hans Delbruck, and with Helen und Irene von Henning. From 1891 to 1898 she worked as a secretary at the editorial department of the publishers of the Prussian Almanacs. After leaving this job, she took up teaching again and taught the daughter of the head groom of stables, Graf von Wedel. However, she never completely gave up her writing and journalist activities, as demonstrated by her contributions to the Berlin daily papers such as the Vossischen Zeitung and other illustrated journals, as well as the Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt, messenger for Christian women. On 16 February 1910 she married the author Karl Kuhls, born on 4 February 1862 in Wellern, Kreis-Lausdorf, Livland, son of the teacher Karl Kuhls, director of the school in Riga and Königsberg, and his wife Emma Eniacuti Froelich from Memel. From this time on she published her contributions mainly under the name Marie Kuhls or Marie Kuhls Goslich. In 1911 the Kuhls-Goslich couple moved to Potsdam to the Bismarckstraße 9, and in 1912 to the Albrechtstraße 3. After a divorce from Karl Kuhls, whose illegitimate son Hans Kuhls, born the 11th of March 1915, she adopted. Her address from July 1918 was Potsdamer Straße 84a, Berlin, and later Alten Königster 1. At the end of the 1920s she moved to Geltau, living first with the Hermann family at their guest house Baumgartenbruck and then at the house of the Rostock family in the Havelstrasse 4. In the Geltau address register she is last named in 1936 1937 as Marie Kuhls. Author. Photography. After Marie Goslich's death, 410 glass negatives, format 13x18, were kept by Mrs. Hermann. Due to long storage and general circumstances, the glass negatives were in very bad condition. They have meanwhile, however, been scanned with a film scanner allowing for formats up to 20x30 cm. Following scanning, the negatives were packed in acid-free paper and are now stored in safe and stable boxes. An exhibition on the life and works of Marie Goslich is currently being organized. Goslich's photographic and journalistic work provides us with a picture of everyday culture in the early 20th century, which is unusual for a woman, particularly from her social class. Many of her older photos were clearly taken to illustrate reports on social and societal situations. In her articles she resists the destruction of the old infrastructure in cities, comments on land reform, and photographed in this context Berlin's inner courtyards and lanes and streets with their small Markian houses. In addition, scenes from building demolishing and the step-by-step reconstruction of older houses are found on the glass negatives, and the boats, warehouses, bridges, the people working in the ports show how Berlin was built from barges. Photographs of children playing or doing craftwork illustrate articles that try to escape from the unpleasantness of the tenement blocks. Photography on social themes during the First World War shows the work of the Berlin Frauen Hilfe, Women's Aid, and for example the construction of haybox cooker. Genre photographs. Goslich directed special attention to the topic of women and their work in the field, garden and yard, working fishermen and their families. Anglers and recreational athletes were also photographed in action. The pictures demonstrated the natural characteristics of human beings in relation to their sequences of motion. Goslich's concept, the holding of the object in a natural landscape, has the effect that the photos of beggars, wanderers on the roadside, or the humble street vendors do not possess the drama expected by the viewer. They are simply a component part of society, a matter of course of their time. Landscapes. Her landscapes are scenes from the Markt Brandenburg, showing much water and forests framing sandy pathways, sailing boats and beaches overcrowded with townsfolk. Comprehensive photo material illustrates the demolishing of the old and the construction of the new Baumgartenbruck, Schwielowsee, or shows events in and around the guest house Baumgartenbruck. Some photographs show gardens in Berlin and the surroundings areas of Schwielowsee, Potsdam, Werder, Dahme and Erdahme, Kustrin and Lübbenau. Drawings. During the war years Marie Goslich designed and drew dresses and suits which clearly demonstrated the change in fashion during the years 1912 to 1920. These were published in the inserts für die Arbeitsstube, for the work parlor, and Kleidung und Watte, clothes and linen, of the Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt, later Bote für die deutsche Frauenwelt. A drawing of the entrance to Petzau Castle can be seen in Denmark, and she illustrated the essay, Der Eislauf, ice skating, with zest for ice skaters. Journalism. Her publications can be found under Marie Goslich, M.G., and also under the name Marie Kuhls, M.K., or Marie Kuhls Goslich in Preußische Jahrbucher, Verlag von Georg Stilke, Berlin 1898, 1899, Nationalzeitung, Sonntagsbeilage, Aktiengesellschaft Berlin 1902, Die Zeit, Verlag der Hilfe, Berlin Schöneberg, 1903, Zeitschrift für Transportwesen und Straßenbau, Berlin 1903, Theater Verlag Eduard Bloch, Berlin 1906, Zeitschrift für Krankenpflege, R. Kober H. Kramer, Fisches medizinische Buchhandlung, Berlin 1906, Zeitschrift für die Binnenschiffe, Paratel, Berlin 1906, Die Wache, A. Schurl Verlag, Berlin 1907, Vossische Zeitung, Königlich Privilegierte Berlinische Zeitung von Staats und Geleit in Sachen, im Verlag Vossischer Urban, 1912, Körperkultur, Illustrierte Monatschrift für körperliche Verwalkung, Verlagsgesellschaft Kuranier M. B. H. Berlin 1908, 1909, 1910, Der Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt, Stiftungsverlag Oberlinhauses, Potsdam 1905, Der Bote für die deutsche Frauenwelt, Stiftungsverlag Oberlinhauses, Potsdam 1915, 1916, 1917, 1918, 1919, 1920, Die Mark, Illustrierte Wochenschrift für Touristik und Heimatkund, Alexius Kieseling, Buch- und Landkartenverlag, Berlin 1907, 1907-08, 1908-09, 1913, 1914, 1927. Important journalistic contributions. In the Preußische Jahrbucher, Prussian Almanac, 1899, she published letters from Johanna Kinkel, the composer and music teacher and the first wife of the poet Gottfried Kinkel. Thanks to these publications, the personal experience of Johanna Kinkel with the societal consequences of the revolutionary years around 1848 could be handed down. Her earliest report was a three-part, richly illustrated on the Spreewald, written for the journal Bote für die christliche Frauenwelt in 1905. Evidence of her critical style can be found in her article, Tusculum Undersessor in February, which she published in the Vossische newspaper in 1912. In this contribution she emphasized the intellectual happenings in Geltau, the influence of Baron Hartwig von Musbach, 1781–1847. Moreover, she criticized a report by Theodor Fontaine, in which he had discredited the Assessorenfabrik of Baumgartenbruck. In an article, Grace, in Körperkultur, 1910, she wrote about grace and charm. In Vanity Fair, in Körperkultur, 1910, she compared the elegant lady with the misery of houseworkers. Remarkable are her negative comments with respect to land reform and property dealing, which was leading to dramatic changes in city infrastructure. These are cited from Heimatschutz und Bodenreform. In Die Mark chapter 1914, Industrium Havelufer, in Die Mark, 1907, and was kann der Hauswirt für die Körperkultur seine Miete tun. Quote, in Körperkultur, 1910, she also championed environmental protection in Ein Kampf die Erhaltung unserer Scene. A Fight for the Preservation of Our Lakes. In Denmark, Die Natur in Denmark. 1913. In further publications, published by Goslich in the journal Körperkultur, she referred to the importance of sport as compensation for unhealthy city life. Her articles were often illustrated with smug scenes of townsfolk doing sport. During the First World War, her style of writing became more patriotic and increasingly communicated the will to hold out for the many women left on their own. To date, only one article from this era after the First World War is known. www. Marie Goslich. Der. Marie Goslich in the German National Library Catalogue.